case, I don't think I can teach. Okay. All right. So, guys, so we're going to learn about NFS. Are you guys getting the echo, or it's only for me? Okay. All right. Let me see who is that. I can find out that. Okay. Can you hear me now? How is it? Okay. So, Arvind, it's coming from your side. I have muted you. Okay. So that's why. Okay, guys. So we'll talk about NFS. So we've been talking about all these days about VMware storage. We talked about local storage. Then we looked at fiber channel storage. Then we talked about iSCSI. Now all these three cases, we see that the storage we got, we formatted it with VMFS file system, and we were learning that VMFS file system can be used for storing virtual machine state, templates, ISO files, and so on. But today I'm going to say that VMware also support another file system to keep your VMs, and that file system is actually NFS. So that is what we're going to look. You don't have to, there is no need to have a VMFS file systems to create and store VMs. You can do pretty much everything that you can do with a VMFS file system with the help of NFS. In old days, people used NFS for a lot of cost perspective, but the performance was bad. But over the year, I think the protocol has improved. VMware has made a lot of improvements. So NFS works pretty good with VMware ESX servers today. Again, performance-wise, of course, iSCSI and fiber channel will be better than NFS, but you can do a pretty good job with NFS. I think it works well, much more stable, high performance at this point, especially with the ESXi 5 onwards. They made drastic changes in the NFS component inside the VM kernel. So before going to NFS, let us talk about NAS. So you might have heard about NAS. You can go to Best Buy or any storage, Amazon and all. They sell a lot of NAS devices. NAS stands for Network Attached Storage, meaning that is nothing but it's a whole bunch of storage attached to the network. At a file system level, if you read this, you can see that storage shared over the network at a file system level, meaning it is not block oriented, it is more of a file-based access. Basically, NAS is a file share, and then you accessing the share, just like if you have a Windows server, you can actually go and access file shares, correct? 10.10.3, you can do like that. You can access this file share. This is actually a file share or things like that. So you can always access shares. That's the whole purpose of sharing a folder, and then you can present it to other users to access it over the network. So NAS is basically a storage that is shared over the network at file system level. It's actually a file sharing thing. So why do you use NAS? It is actually low cost, moderate performance option. It is a low cost option, but it is gives you a moderate performance also, not that very bad. So you can use NAS. Less infrastructure investment required than with fiber channel, of course, because it's a file share. You can work it with your own existing network. You don't need any costly HBAs or fiber channel switches or anything. So it is very cheap compared to other technologies. So when it comes to the NAS, so NAS is actually a main protocol, network attached storage. In NAS, there are two protocols are there. One is called as the NFS, the Network File System Protocol, which is what we're going to learn. And the other one is called as SMB. SMB is actually used in the Windows world. It's also known as CIFS, Common Internet File System. Common Internet File System. That's what CIF share means. So what is SMB? Anybody know what is SMB? Have you seen SMB protocol? Have you used SMB protocol? Anybody?
I think anytime we share a Windows directory, it's automatically SMB.
That is correct. Anytime you share a folder or a folder on a Windows world, you're actually using the SMB protocol. Actually, SMB protocol version 2 is that what comes with Windows 2008 R2. It's much more better and things like that. So in Windows servers, up until 2008 R2, SMB was only available. NFS was not available. But now with the clients and all, NFS support is there in Windows servers. But SMB is primarily used in the Windows world. So NFS and SMB both are same, but as NFS was used in the Unix world, and SMB was used in the Windows world. So in Windows world, if you're sharing a folder, just like I showed you earlier, if I'm accessing that folder like this, that means I'm using the SMB protocol. Okay. So when it comes to SMB, it is also called as CIF share, Common Internet File System. It's also known as CIF share. If somebody asks you, you can say that. So there are some major NAS appliances support both NFS. So, NAS appliances. So first of all, in NAS, NetApp is one of the biggest company that deal with NAS. EMC has something called Celera. HP has some other product. I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with Celera, and I'm also familiar with some of the NetApp NAS appliances. So they have major NAS appliances. NetApps and EMC has huge NAS boxes you can buy. It's something very similar to your storage arrays. Again, it's storage arrays, but it is separate devices basically meant for this particular thing. And most of these appliances you buy from NetApp or from EMC. You can see that it supports both NFS and SMB. So, if a company buys a big, in our company we have, I think we have 8 or 9 NAS appliances. Are there huge things with so much amount of storage, low-cost storage, but it is used by the Linux Windows team as well as the Unix team. They both use Solaris. They all store files. The major file shares in our company are actually using this NAS appliances. We have EMC's NAS appliances called Celera. NetApp has many file systems. So NetApp, if you go to netapp.com, some of the NetApp's filers, it's called as a NetApp filers. It's basically called as NetApp filer. This is just very similar to our, the storage arrays we saw. It is basically the same thing, but it is meant for these kind of NAS SMB protocols, basically meant for NFS and SMB protocols. So you can see that's what it is basically. So that is how it is. So how many of you are familiar with NFS? How many of you are familiar with NFS? Have you used NFS in Unix? Who all knows Linux or Unix in this class? Who all are familiar with Linux and Unix?
Deepu, I have used it briefly.
Okay. Satya is familiar with it. Okay. I know Satya is a Unix guy, so Satya definitely knows it. So Satya, he may be knowing more about it. If you have a Unix Ubuntu or any Unix environment, and if it's just like creating a file share. So if you know how to create a file share, you're actually using NFS in Linux. Well, there is an export FS file. You can create that. You can specify certain things. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but that's how you can create. But when we talk about real NFS or NFS appliances and all, you don't need to do that. Storage guys will do. Typically, this is managed by the storage team. You ask for them, and they will give you NFS or SMB file shares or CIFS file share based on your request. So here is a couple of things. The VM kernel only supports NFS. It does not support SMB. So if you have a Windows share, you cannot use that with VMware ESX server. It only supports NFS. Specifically, NFS version 3 over TCP/IP, meaning NFS has many versions, but I think now the latest version, I don't know, but this is probably like, this is a ESX 3.5 guide, around 5 years old. I know NFS has improved a lot, the versions, but those times, and even today, VM kernel only support NFS version 3 and above. So if you are using an old Linux server or an old Solaris server and try to create an NFS share and try to present it to the ESX server, it may not work. It has to be version 3 and above. So what can you do with NFS file system? So here it is. Any VM, you can hold VMs running virtually. So you can put VMs, you can create VMs in NFS. You can put ISO files. You can create templates. You can do everything. The only thing is that you cannot boot an ESX server from a NFS file store. You cannot boot because it is a file-based protocol. So you cannot boot from NFS, but you can use that NFS volume or whatever that share to create VMs, store ISO files and templates, everything. You can do vMotion and you can do anything. So as I said, the only exception is you cannot boot from NFS. So moving on, NFS components, it's nothing much here, just it's a matter of talking about NFS components. NFS again is a file level protocol. It uses TCP/IP as the protocol, so it is pretty much very similar to TCP, ISKC, but ISKC is block oriented, so I'm not going there. But here it is a file share. So here in this particular picture, if you look at it, you can see that NFS is using this is an NFS server, and this is actually a file share, or it's a mount volume. In Linux world, you mount a folder, and then it's actually a mount volume ISO file. That's a folder, and that folder can be shared over the network so that this server can access it. So you can see that there is a network card. You're using your existing network cards, no ISKC HB or anything. You use your existing network card and you access that file share. If you know the path and the server name, that's it. All you need to do is / server name / file share name. That's it, and that you can access it. But in order to create and access NFS share, you need a VM kernel port group. Again, this is a must. VM kernel is the one that will allow you to do that. So you have to create a VM kernel port in order to access an NFS file share. Very similar to what we did for ISKC. Okay. So you should have a virtual switch, and you have to create inside that. So you have to create a VM kernel port, and then you access that thing. So you should also know the share, and this share should be permissioned to access the server. It can be all done by the permissions. Okay. So it's pretty much the same thing. This is old picture. It's an old picture. So if you're a Linux guy, you know what is this exports file. I'm just showing this in the old way. So in Linux world, okay, this is only in the Linux servers and all. If you have in the Linux server, there is actually a file called /etc exports. There is a file called exports. In that file, you have to specify your share name, which is your mount volume, which is this /ISO file. In this case, its name is ISO. It can be DPU, or it can be folder, or it can be any name. In this case, that folder is shared with, or that volume is mounted and shared if we're using the name ISO. So that's the name of the mount volume. The IP address of the network, who can access that. So you can see that it is actually the IP address of that server, and that /24 is actually the subnet mask. The 255.255.255.0 is actually /24. Then there is some permissions. You can see that they are given read, write, things like that. They are given some permission. One of the important things, this is only required if you are trying to create a Unix file share yourself and you want to present it to an ESX server. make sure that you give this permission to no_root_squash. This is actually a Linux or a Unix permission, no_root_squash. This is required as a must in order to gain access. Many Unix administrators are not very happy with giving this permission. This is like giving a full access, no question about it. Okay, the root can come and access and do whatever you want, but it is a must to do that. So this is not required nowadays. I'm just telling, if you are trying to bring up a Ubuntu server and you want to create a NFS file share and you want to present that file share to your ESX server, then you have to go to the exports file in your Ubuntu server and you have to do that. This is done at the Ubuntu server or your Linux server. Okay, this is how you present. Once you do that, you can see that this is the IP address of this server 192.168, this 71 here. You can see that it's actually they are given permission to any machines that are from this subnet. 192.168.81.0 means any machines in that subnet can access this file share. That's how the permission is, but it can be given explicitly also. Okay, so this is how it is done. It is a very simple technique, and you have that thing. So that's all it is there. There is nothing much. Any questions, anybody, on any questions so far? I mean, there's nothing much. What we talked or what I talked today is actually whatever I talked now is general Linux concept. How do you share a file share? How do you share a folder in a Linux world or a Unix world? And then how do you present that? Is that clear? You don't need to know that also. Okay, it's not a must, but I was just showing you. So now let's go on to your NFS server. So in order to do the NFS, I told you, we have to have a VM kernel port group. And then you go to the port, and then you go to the properties of the NFS file store and you specify those information. That's all you need to do. If you remember correctly, I was showing you FreeNAS device yesterday here. In my FreeNAS, this is actually, I told you I have NFS also. So we're going to use the NFS volumes that are mounted here. You go here, and if you really go to services, and if you go to NFS, okay, hold on, let me see where it is. Okay. So these volumes here, so I have this, you can see that I have created some volumes here. You can see these things actually. These two of them are configured as NFS volumes. Actually, if you look here carefully, you can see that they are actually configured as that. So mount volume 3, this is actually my this is my Unix share or my NFS share. /mnt/volume 3, volume 4, and volume 5, and these are all configured with different file shares. These are file shares, okay? These are folders that are shared in the network. So there may be some data, you cannot format it and all. There may be some data that may be used by somebody else and things like that. So I have a share, and I'm going to create that share into my ESX server. So let us go and create, take an ESX server and let us try to configure NFS on one of the servers. So this is one of the server here. I'm going to the server, go to the thing. First thing we need to do in order to do NFS is you go to the networking and you create a port group. So here there is already an ISKC port group. You can actually use the same port group to do that. You don't need to create another one, but it is a best practice always. If you have ISKC and NFS, you definitely separate the traffic using both. So I'm not going to create the NFS port here. I'm rather going to create the NFS port on the first switch. So I'm going to the properties. I'm going to create a new VM kernel port group, and I'm going to call it as NFS. You can give any name. Next, and let us give it an IP address. I can use 74. So I'm going to give 10.10.10.74 for that, 255.255.255.0. I configured that address. Now I created a new kernel port group. It is going to be the VMK2. You can see that if you look here, you can say it's VMK2. Why is it VMK2? Because VMK0 is the management VM kernel port group. Then you have another VM kernel port group created as VMK1. And this is the third VM kernel port group you created as 2. So we created the thing. Second thing you need to do is you have to go to the security profile and you have to go to the properties, and there is actually an NFS client. You need to enable that NFS client. You need to open that port, actually, the NFS client port. So there are two things done. Now that is it you need to do. You don't need to do anything. Now you click on the server, go to the storage, and go to the add storage. Instead of disk LAN, if you want to have a network file system to be added, you have to select this option. Select network file system, click next, and you get this window. So here you need to put your server name, the NFS server name. If it is a Ubuntu box, you have to put the Ubuntu server's IP address. If you have a NetApp or a NetApp filer or a EMC Celera, you have to put the IP address of that device here or the name of that 10.10.10.201, and now here you have to put your volume name. So you can see that I put the mount volume 3. Correct? This was the one. This was one of the volume I put. If you want to read only, you can do that. But we're going to create thing and all, so we don't need to do read only. Now you can give it a name for that volume. I'm going to call it as NFS underscore storage underscore 01. That is going to be the name of my data store. Okay, so click next. It is seeing all these things. It says that the server name is this. The folder is actually /mnt/volume. Why that is? Because in my NFS environment, it is shared like this. You don't need to have two things. You can share right at there, just like volume 3. But in here, in my environment, it is written as shared as /mnt volume, and this is the name. And you click finish. And you can see that the storage has come up here. It is a 40, 50 GB, 47 GB hard drive. Free space is 33. It is a file share. You didn't do any formatting. There may be stuff inside there. Let us open that and see. You can see that all my students, other students in my other classes, they created all these different folders. You can see that there are many VMs, Swatis, Pratyusha, Srikant. There is a lot of stuff here. So you can, I'm going to delete all these now. And also you see that there is an ISO file here. This is something I wanted to show. I'm going to keep that ISO file there. It is actually a Windows Server x64. What is this? It's Windows. I don't know. It's an Excel. Anyway, it's an ISO file. So So this is just a file share. Anybody else can also access that. Okay, it doesn't mean that you are only accessing. So if I have given permission to a Linux server, he can also access it. Typically, the storage guy, whoever managed the NFS, they give the storage. We don't need to do anything. So in my office, I ask my storage guy, hey, I need a new NFS volume. I need this much size. He will create a NFS volume and give it to us. That will be like a dedicated NFS thing he will create a 1 terabyte volume and he share it and give it to us. For me, it is just a file share, but the backend, he know that it is a 1 terabyte or 500 GB or whatever. Typically, storage administrators give shares in small space, but they can always grow that. They can always increase the size of it by using the storage. So they do it in that way. So you don't need to worry about it. You ask him, okay, hey, give me this much storage, he will give you that. Okay. So you do not need to go to FreeNAS and create. FreeNAS is a free software you can download from internet to create a small NFS environment in your own house. FreeNAS is not that something that you may be using in a company. When you are in a good company, you will have dedicated, powerful NAS appliances like networks, NetApps filers, or EMC Celera or Centara, things like that. Here, for my lab purpose, I just got that thing. I installed that FreeNAS on a server, and then I configured that with so much storage, and then I shared that storage as NFS. Okay, that is what I did here. So I did a lot of work before to configure that. Whatever you see here, things are done prior to my class. I did all these things long back. Actually, I've been using this for quite some time now. So that's how I'm doing here to show you this. But in a real world, you don't have to worry about that thing. You will be getting the storage from your storage guys. These are all VMs created by the students, okay? It depends on how, see, as I said, if you are in a very large Fortune 100 company or a financial company and all, you see very less amount of NFS usage. But if you are in a mid-size or a small company, you see a lot of NFS usage. So it is how it is. So again, it's a cost factor. If you have the money, you can always go for faster, better storage. If you don't have that much money, then you can go for this, and you live with what you have. Right? So that is the thing. I'm just cleaning up all these guys, so it's all from the old thing. There are many of these. All these are part of the clustering configuration. So we'll talk about all these things later. It was just a normal file share. So I'm keeping that NFS, that ISO file in that data store. So now if you look at this particular server, I have an iSCSI data store, I have a local SCSI data store, and I also have NFS data store. You can see now 3 different type of file for storage technologies are on this server now. Only thing I'm missing is the fiber channel. I don't have a fiber channel. Now what I wanted to show you, this is something Fanny was asking the other day. Typically in my company and all, we use NFS to store ISO files for building VMs and stuff like that. So we have so many versions of ISO file. Windows XP, SP1, Windows XP, SP2, SP3, Windows 2003, SP1, SP2, Windows XP, Windows 7, lot of ISO files, different Unix versions and all. We keep those ISO files. Not only that, there are many other ISO files for many file transfer pieces. We use a lot of ISO files, and we keep all those ISO files in some NFS file store, which is cheap and actually it can be presented to all servers. So here is the question. So actually, let us say I want to install some things like this. See, here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a VM here, NFS. I'm going to call it as NFS underscore test. And I'm going to select the NFS storage. Next, 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 next. You all know all these things. Okay, I'm not going to select. I'm going to take a 15 GB hard drive, and I'm finishing that. So I created this VM. You all know that it is actually inside this data store. We can see that the file is there. Now, before booting, nothing. Here is what I am going to do. This is the important piece I want to show. I want to attach that ISO file to this VM so that when the VM boots up, I want the VM to boot from there. So what I can do is go to the edit settings, go to the CD-ROM drive. Instead of this client device, if you have this option selected, then you will have the CD-ROM option when you open the console. But I can click on the data store file, browse, go to NFS data store and attach that file. This is not going to boot. You have to make sure that connected power on. When you have that checkbox on and you click OK, now if I power on this VM, I'm going to open this console. I don't have to do anything. If I power on this VM, it is going to boot from that ISO file, and it will be much faster because in this case, see that with this Windows is loading files. When you have the ISO files locally on the data store, and if you try to mount from there, it will be much faster than what you do from here. If you have it here, it is on your thing, but that's not the thing. You should always, if possible, try to mount it from your local thing. I know there are some people said, installing Windows 2008 is very slow and all. If you have the Windows 2008 ISO file on a local data store, it will be much, much more faster than mounting it from a VM or from your desktop. Okay, so that is what option. So that is another option of booting, or attaching. This is what everybody do normally. I never showed you that, but you can see that this is the way you can move files. Okay. So that is how you create NFS volume. So you can see that it's coming up. It's actually Windows 7, I think. So let it come up. I'm going to close that. It will install it. It will come up. Now I can go and add another data store. I have quite some data stores are there. So I'm going to go here, add data store. Network file system. Next. Again, the same server 10.10.10.201. In this case, it is volume 4. I'm going to call it as NFS underscore storage underscore 02. Next and finish. So it is going to come there. See, that's a 100 GB hard drive. That is 100 GB and 67 GB is free. There is also a lot of VMs. I'm going to clean that also. So that you guys can build more VMs in NFS. Okay, now you can see it's pretty much 100 GB. If I refresh it, you can see that that is like 100 GB free. It's almost 100 GB free. So you have enough storage now. Now look here itself. You have a lot of free space on this server. Now if you want to build them, you have 23 GB here, almost 237. But don't build VMs on local storage. You can build VMs on local storage. There is no problem. But build VMs on local storage, and then you want to try to do vMotion and things like that, it won't work because local storage, if a VM is attached to a local storage, then you cannot move it to other ESX servers. If you want to move a VM from one server to another, you have to have it on a shared storage. So that is the whole purpose of shared storage. That is why storage is so important, especially shared storage is so important. So this is the second volume. I have one more volume to attach, so there is a lot of space there. Let me add that also to this server 10.10.10.201, and that is volume 5, and I'm going to call it as NFS underscore storage underscore 03. That is the third NFS storage. So that is also 100 GB, which is having VM. So let me go and delete that also, some stuff. So I'll see this. So you guys should build. These are all my other last batch students. They build a lot of VMs. Okay. So please try to build as much as VMs, because we need those VMs and stuff like that. You may think that it's easy to do. People who are not really build Windows servers, Windows 2003 server, this is a chance for you to build and learn. Those who know, I know you don't have to, but still, I strongly recommend to build VMs if possible. Okay, so let it. You can delete all these things if you want. I think it will. You can move, yes, you can of course move a VM's files from a local storage. That is absolutely possible, but not now. Yeah, I mean, you can do that here also by using some file exports and things like that. Let me show you that. There are tools. I will show you that. So that's a good question. You can definitely move if it is on a local storage. You have to power off the VM, and you can move all the VM's disk files from that local storage to a shared storage by using some tools like WinSCP or by using Veeam Backup. There are many tools available to do that. So by using that, you can actually move VM's files from one storage to another, provided the VM is powered off. But if you want to move a VM from one server to another when the VM is powered on, then you need to have shared storage. Come on. Okay, guys, I'm not going to do that, so you can delete that, Actually, please remove all these folders before you create it. So this is how you create the NFS volumes. Is that clear? Any questions on that? So you can create VMs, you can put ISO files and things like that. So what I wanted to show you here is, so that is all basically NFS is. And you know the advantages of NFS, you know the disadvantages of NFS, and you know how to create NFS. And this is what it is. NFS requires it requires a VM kernel port group, very important factor. It needs the NFS client to be enabled on your firewall because it requires that. So those are some of the important things you may want to check. The NFS client, that port needs to be opened and things like that. Other than that, NFS is pretty clean, straightforward technology. There is nothing much here. So these are the servers. So you can see that in this particular server there is only one ISKC data store. There is one more ISKC to be added. As per the class in my lab, I have one more ISKC data store. So whoever is working, please add all those storage. Okay, and make sure that, because from next week onwards we need all these storage to learn the different storage clustering and things like that. Now once we get on to clustering, we will be doing a lot of things with these storages. So it's very important to keep all these storages and things like that. Remember one thing, these NFS, these are file shared. So if you create a VM here and you try to access that file share from somewhere else, you will see it there also. If you delete it from there, it will go off. Okay, so be careful on that. If you look at our VM, it may be building now. It might have almost, it's moving very fast. It's Windows Server 2008. So you can build it. It will be much faster than you installing from a normal way. So let it go. So that is what the NFS is. I think we talked about all these things. I just wanted to, I'm not going to start. This is something I wanted to finish. So I think I finished what I really wanted to show you. But I just wanted to take a few moments to another thing. To connect to ESXi, like Sri was asking, how do you move? Yeah, currently it is configured with RDM. So you have to remove that RDM from whatever VM you created. Then only you can add that as an iSCSI data store. Okay. And we don't want we need iSCSI storage to do other things. So WinSCP, how many of you are familiar with WinSCP?
Deepu, 1 second. What is RDM?
What is that?
What is RDM? You said something like RDM.
Yesterday we talked about RDM, right? Raw device mapping.
Oh, raw device. Okay, got
it. Okay, so this is WinSCP. How many of you are familiar with WinSCP? So you can use WinSCP to connect to ESX servers, but I think ESXi does not support it. Let me see. I'll give it a try. I don't think it works. There was a problem. There was a bug in this application. So let me try 10.10.10.96 root and password. If you do that, it won't connect. So there is a problem with that. In ESX servers, it was very easy to do. I think a later version of WinSCP might definitely support. It's been a while. I don't use WinSCP much. I use something called Veeam Backup and FastSCP. They have something called a FastSCP. Let me show you that. This is actually a product from a company called Veeam. They are one of the companies that do a lot of backups. They are actually pretty doing good in the industry. They have a lot of clients. So they have a product called Veeam Backup. They have quite some products. Actually, the company name is called Veeam.com. So if you can go to Veeam, so this is the Veeam Backup and free edition. They have a free edition you can download, but their actual products are a little costlier. So this is Veeam Backup and free edition. We need 4 hours, whatever I'm going to show you, but they have full product for replication. I will talk about replication and some DR scenarios in my last class. I'm not going to teach, but I will definitely give you guys about how replication and things like that work. We can buy an evaluation copy and we can try to do that in permits. Again, it's only if type permits. I have something called Veeam Management for System Center Operations Manager. Those familiar with the SCOM. That's application monitoring software from Microsoft. Very powerful, very well known. It's one of the best powerful software for application monitoring. System Center Operations Manager. So System Center Operations Manager has something called as management pack that consists of all the alarms. So Veeam has a management pack for a virtualized environment. You can add that to your scope. You can get better things. So they have a couple of products. And I'm not going to look into that. I have software installed on this. So this you can download it if you want. If you have anybody interested, you can download it. I'm going to I have backup and fast SCP. This I started this product now to show you what is fast SAP. It is something like WinSAP. It's like an SSH client. You can do actually file copies. Can you guys hear me? Okay, I started that website. That's why it was going. Now it should be good. Okay. All right. So what you need to do is, let me disconnect all my servers here. These are all from my old class. All right, so this is my computer. I have my own. This is my computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a server. So let us connect. You can add a virtual sender. We will learn about that later. You can add ESX server. You can add a Linux server or whatever. So I'm going to add an ESXi host. Let us say 10.10.10.96. Add that server. Give the password. I use this product in my office to do file copy, and this is exactly what Sri was asking, so I'm going to show you. So you click on that, finish. Now I have this thing, and now I can connect to the server directly, and I can see all my data stores. You see that? Isn't it beautiful? Now I want to move, so let us look at this server. So which server is on the server? CentOS. So this is on the local store, correct? Okay, this is on local data store. See that? So I'm going to power off this Satya, your VM for a minute. So Sri was asking earlier, Deepu, hey, how can I move that VM to a shared storage? There is no way you can do that from here. There is no way you can do that. So what I'm going to do here is this. I'm going to the local storage, and I see that the Satya's VM's name, CentOS. I don't see here. Now can you tell me why is that? Why am I not seeing CentOS 5_64_ Satya? I'm not seeing that. Here it is saying that VM is in this storage. Can anybody tell me?
Maybe it's still not powered off?
No, it is powered off, everything is there, but it is not showing here. Anybody? Satya is saying Linux_64_ Satya is that VM. It is correct because Satya built it as a different VM and later he changed the name. This is very, very important, a very important point. If you go to the properties of this VM and if you click on the options tab, general, you can see that it is actually pointing to Linux_64_ Satya. That was the original name. He created it there, but what he did was he came here and he changed the name of this. You can do that. It is not recommended to do that. If you do that kind of things, a lot of people I see that they come here, they change the name as they wish. Once you do that, what happens is when you want to do some file transfers and things like that, you will have a different name and your folder will have another name. In this case, I know this is the name because how do I know this is that folder? I know it from this box of that VM. Here it says that VM is here, the working directory is here. So that's what it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unregister this VM from here, remove from inventory. Yeah. We'll talk about that when we get on to the clustering. At this point, I will show you. If you rename a VM, there has to be a step you need to do in order to fix that folder structure. You should not go and change the folder structure. For example, if you click on this VM, okay, that was a good question. So this is the VM now, and if you look at the folder, you can see that that is inside this folder. I want to know what is the exact name of that folder inside that thing. So if you look here and go to the options, you can see that ISKC Aravind or Ubuntu_1, which is fine. So in the folder also, it is showing exactly that. So here you can see that Ubuntu_, where is that VM? Oh, it's in ISKC data store. Okay, if you go to the ISKC data store, you can see that that's the exact name. Correct? Now, let us say I'm going to rename this folder to underscore 2. I renamed it. Now what happens? This folder is same as this. The folder name is different, right? The folder name is still 1. If you go and change the folder name here to 2, it will create a lot of problems. It will definitely create a lot of problems because this VM you may not even able to power on. I'll show you that now. If you do that, if you do this to 2, and now if you try to power on this VM, it will not even power on. You see this? Why is it not powering on? Because according to the VM's information, the kernel knows that it is in a folder called Aravind underscore Ubuntu underscore 1, but you don't have that folder there. You just change that folder. That is not the right way to do that. If you do that, it is going to be a big problem. It will never work. So be very careful on that. So that is not the right way to change the folder name. Don't do that. So now I change it back. Even though the VM name is 2, I can now power it on. There is no problem on that. See, it is powering on. You understand what I'm saying? So I will show you how to do that in a proper way. There are a couple of ways, but most of them are tedious, but there is a very easy way to get rid of that problem. I'll talk about that when we get on the clustering. So Raiden, it's your job to remind me, okay. So nobody has asked me that question, but remind me that I will show you how to do that. I cannot show you that now. Oh yeah, I can show you that now also. No, I cannot. Because there is no migrate option here. There is an option called migrate. That option you get only when you have this. Anyways, so that's all the thing. So let us go and move this Linux VM. So I'm going to copy this. See, that's very simple. I removed that VM, so I'm going to copy that folder. And then, just like that, here, you can click on NFS and you can paste it here. So it is as simple as that. But if you are familiar with FTP commands and all, guys, you can actually do that way also. But this is the most easiest way. The biggest advantage of FastSCP is using a high-end compression technology. So it is actually it is able to move these files very fast. It is actually doing a lot of compression and other techniques to move the files from one data store to another. So it is 10 times faster than normal file copies. So this is how it is. So Sri, you understand your question, right? So this is how you can move. So now once you move it, you have to register that VM back. So let us wait for that process to complete. So this way you can move any VM. So now there is another question. So I wanted to move some Windows 2003 ISO file to the server. So I'm going to my G drive. I'm going to my software. And now I wanted to move a ISO file. Let us say, okay, I wanted to move the Ubuntu here. Yeah. So I want to move this Ubuntu ISO file. So copy that file. Simple. From your Windows world, you can copy that into an NFS store. Paste it here. So that way you can move ISO files to your dev store and then you can build from there, which will be much more faster. Any questions, anybody? We understand this. So FastSCP, it is a free product. You can download it and you can use that to move things. Okay.
Okay. Instead of
having that on your desktop. Sorry, I will answer that. Having a WinSCP or a FastSCP on your desktop is always good as a VMware administrator. So you can move files from Windows servers to one Windows server. You can use that between vCenter. You can use that between Hyper-V servers. Anything. It is actually a good product to add anything. It doesn't matter whether it is Windows servers or Hyper-V or Zen. You can use that to any operating systems. Yeah, go ahead, Aravind.
Okay. Now, instead of moving, moving a file from one data store to another, if you copy the file from one data store to another, which is a VM, is it going to create a clone, or it's going to move completely?
So what is a clone?
You're asking me?
Yes, you said it's
One
going
is
to
like,
create a clone. You said it's
creating
going
another
to
of the
create a
same.
clone, so I'm asking you what is a clone?
Exactly the same VM with all the data within, including the operating system and
If
everything.
that is your question, exactly, you are moving the entire VM's files, right? A state of a VM is what is inside that folder, correct? You have your
Yes.
VMX file, you have your log files, you have your VMDK file. A VM is the whole picture. See, that is why I told you to understand the difference. You know that a VMM or VM is the outside shell, and the guest OS is different. So where is your guest operating system actually? That guest operating system is inside that VMDK file, correct? So as long as you get that MDK file, you're pretty much good. Okay, there is some problem here. Okay, existing. Okay, I'm not worried. I think it's copied here, but I know it didn't. I think it did. It didn't copy. Okay, forget it. I'm not going to do that. But it can be done. Here it is still copying. So yes, Aravind, your question is yes. It is going to be the same thing. It is not your. It is not a clone. It is actually you are moving the same thing. So I don't think it is a clone or a copy. You are actually moving, right? I'm not copying. I'm actually cut and pasting it there, right?
Oh,
Can I
it's
do
a
the
cut and paste.
or
So
I'm doing a copy? I think I'm doing a copy here. That's the problem. So yeah, if you're doing a copy, you are actually doing the same thing. But I should have done a cut and copy. I mean move. I should have done that. Let me cancel this and show you something else. Let me see. I can cancel this process. It's not canceling also.
by the way, I have added the second NFS data store as well. iSCSI.
Okay.
Sorry, not NFS, iSCSI.
Okay. So here is the thing. Let me try to do one more thing. Let us create a new VM here. I think this is creating a problem. So I need to close this. Let me start this beam backup one more time. Okay. What I'm going to do here is, let me show you this quickly here. I'm going to create a new VM here. Test. I'll create it on the local data store. See, this is the local data store of that ESX server. I'm putting 1 GB memory. Now creating a 1 GB hard drive just to show you this 1 GB hard drive, things like that. So I created a new VM called test, and you know that the test VM is going to be, where is that? Where is it, guys? Okay, this is the test VM. If you look at it, it is on the local data store. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove from the inventory. So removing that VM from the inventory doesn't mean that I'm deleting the VM, right? All the VM's files, everything is in the data store. You're just unregistering that VM. If something is going on, I think somebody else is connected. Guys, don't do anything on the lab. Aravind, stop doing whatever you're doing. Okay, you are doing many things on the server, and that's why it's slowing. So please don't do it. Let me finish off the class. I don't know, are you copying some files? Okay, anyway, I unregistered VM. So let us go to that local data store and make sure that our test folder is there and the files are there, correct? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to this server, local data store. I'm clicking here and I'm going to right click. Actually, I cannot do a cut. Actually, I have to do a copy only. I think I can do a move. Probably. Let me see. I think I can move. You can drag and drop it also. So I'm going to drag and drop it onto here. Let's see what happens. I think it's still do a copy only. A copy means there's no problem, right? I don't know. This is not, see, this is I'm just showing in a case where you have a one ESX server. When you have the vSender and all, you don't need to do all these things. It's all done by the ESX server. vSender do it. Right now I'm doing based on the question Sri has asked, how do you move it? If you have vSender, you don't need all these things. vSender will do all the movement for you. Right now, if you have in your house, if you, let's say you have a standalone ESX server and you want to move a VM from one folder to another, this is what you do. But when you are when you have the vSender and all, you're going to see a totally different type of migration. That is called as the storage migration or storage vMotion. You will see that. Cold migration. There are two types of migrations are there, cold migration and hot migration. Hot migration is the process of migrating a server from one storage to another when the server is powered on, and a cold migration is when the VM is powered off. So that's the only difference. I mean, here in my lab it is slow because, you have to understand certain things. My NFS itself is a slow NFS. We are doing all these things through RDP, and I'm actually sitting in my room, and it's actually a wireless connection. It's a powerful wireless, but it is still a wireless. So there's a whole lot of things happening, and that's why. Otherwise, in a real world, having this 1 GB file won't even take less than 10 seconds. Okay? It will be much faster. So don't think that, moving this is all painful process. Whatever you're seeing, powering on a VM, everything you see, it's slow here because it's a lab. You have to think in that. It's a very basic level lab. When you are doing in real environment, this won't be the performance. It will be very high performance.
Okay, that's wonderful.
No questions, sir. I'm just waiting, guys. I don't want to start that tube topic. That's why.
Deepu, you are saying that cold.
What is that?
Yes, this is Satya.
Yeah. Sorry, Satya.
Just you are saying that when cold and hot process of this one cloning. Just which one is we can more advantageous actually.
We will talk about that. I just mentioned that word. We will be learning cloning templates, migrations and all once we get into the state. Right now, don't worry about that. We will be doing at that point. But I just was mentioning hot cloning is something that we do when a VM is powered on, and a cold is when the VM is powered off. That's all. So don't worry about that for now. Okay, so this is actually moved here to the NFS storage. You can see that the test one, but it was a copy here. You can see that in this case it's a copy, so you can delete it. But in this case, see, this is the problem of this tree. But when you are doing the vCenter and you do the migration, it's actually a move process. Okay, here it is actually doing a cold. So now what I do is I can see that the VM is here. The VM's files are here, correct? So what I can do here is there. I go to my NFS storage 1, browse the data store, I see the test folder here, and I right click on the VMX file, add to inventory. I can see that it comes with the test, and finish. So now the VM is not on the local data store, it is on the shared data store. Okay? You can power it on. So it asks you, so when you move that VM, it is asking me, did you move it or copy it? If you are not sure, always say you copied it. If you moved it, you can say that, so you can cancel that. It is asking for a confirmation. Hey, I'm seeing that a similar VM somewhere else. Was it copied or anything? That's why this alert message comes. Be careful on that. Sometimes when you do that, it shows. You say OK to it, it will accept that and it will power on that VM. Now you can see that the VM is powered on, everything is working. This way you can actually move a VM from a location. If it is only one ESX server, when you have multiple ESX servers and they are all in the vCenter, you can do much more things. This is not the way. Okay. Now you can go back to the local data store and you can delete that other file. But this is not going to solve the problem of renaming. We will talk about that later. Okay, renaming will also solve the problem. Can also it can be solved by this thing. So here I will show you one. Let me see. This is a test. Okay, I don't know. I'm just imagining it may work like that. Let us say I'm going to do this as 001. I change the name of the VM to 001. Now, if you look at the properties of the VM, you can see that it is still under the test folder, correct? If you want to fix that, you can change the name to test, or you can basically power it off, remove it from the inventory, go back to the first store, register it back. It will come up with the original name. It is not going to come up with that thing. It will come up with the same test name, because you can see that the file structure is still the same. So it's to come back. This is okay. But if you, let us say you really want to change the name to 001, and this is what your intention is. You really want to change the name of the VM to test_001. Now in this case, your choice is what? You have to now rename that folder. Then only it is completed, because otherwise your VM name is different, your folder name is different. It is okay when you have one server or two servers, but when you have hundreds and thousands of servers and you're dealing with all these folders, if you don't do that, so be very careful. Don't try to do that. If you name a VM, then the VM's folder, everything should be the same. I have seen people doing that. They make the name like this. They come here, test_01 deepoo underscore do not power on. They write all story here. Do not power on this VM. It is critical. They put all these things on the VM name. That's absolutely a bad practice. So never do that. So if you are doing, you give test001. Now you want the name to be test001, but unfortunately, if you look at it, you can see that test001 is not the name of the folder. The folder is still same. So if somebody is looking for that VM, they won't find that VM. They don't know if this is that VM or not. They can find out the problem. So you should also fix this. This is what you have to keep. Then you should fix this, or should fix this name also. You should fix this name and the files. You see, all the file names are also appended with the VM name, the old VM name. You need to fix all these things. So just changing the folder name is not going to fix. Changing this is not going to fix. Even if you change that here in the VM, it is not going to get fixed. It is not going to power on, because the VM is still looking for a folder called test. So how do you fix that? I will show you when we get into vCenter. Okay, that process, or there is a migration process, will automatically take care of that. So be very careful on that. Renaming a VM, you think it is very easy. You are just renaming is you are just changing the that registration here, but the actual VM is not getting changed. So be careful on that. So that is it, guys. I think it's a short class, but at least still we covered some stuff. Please add all these NFS storage on all other servers. Make sure that the iSCSI is also available on all servers. And who all build Windows 2008 servers here? Windows 2008 R2. Anybody build a Windows 2008 R2 VM? I think Aravind is having a 64-bit. This one is a working VM, Aravind? Sri, where do you build your VM?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. This is a good VM. Okay, this is enough. I need one VM to install vCenter tomorrow. So we're going to install vCenter. So let me give you a little bit idea about vCenter. So vCenter is a Windows-based 64-bit application. It was never been 64-bit all these years, but now it is a pure 64-bit application that requires a database. It can be an Oracle database, it can be a SQL database, or it can also work with the SQL Express database as long as it is a small deployment. I used to do SQL servers and all earlier in the class. I think it doesn't make any sense to go through that. That's another whole process. So we're going to use the SQL Express database to install the thing. There are two types of SQL vCenters are available. One is called as an appliance. I will show you that. Maybe you guys can try that. VMware has a vCenter appliance you can download. Yesterday I was talking about appliance. You can go to Marketplace and download appliances. Just like that, VMware has a vCenter appliance itself is there. All you need to do is go to vmware.com, download that appliance as a VM, power it on, you're good. It comes with its own database and things like that. So it's a pre-configured vCenter, a Linux-based VM. VMware is suggesting people to use that, but most of the people, I was in the San Francisco also, that was a question asked in the big panel, what is VMware's recommendation? Do you want people to use Windows 2008 and install vCenter as an application, or use the vCenter appliance? So the choice is, according to them, the choice is yours. Most of the companies, if you look at it, for example, in our environment, we have multiple vCenters. Don't think that we only have one, we have many vCenters. and our vCenters are all installed on Windows servers and using SQL Server as the database. So it's not easy for us to move from existing SQL-based, Windows-based application to vCenter. So we don't consider that. When we go to 5, we will be upgrading that server only. That's all. So if you are fresh and you're starting a new company designing, probably you could start with a vCenter appliance. Anyway, it's your choice, but I'm not going to do vCenter appliance. I think it's a small thing, but we will look into how to install vCenter on a Windows server. So I need at least one server ready with a static IP address. So Aravind, can you make sure that this server has a static IP address and things like that for tomorrow's lab? It should work. This server is working. Is it having an IP address? Okay. Okay. All right. So you know what was the problem, right? It was static IP address and all, but that VM was on a port group that was configured as prod. That port group. See that the prod is a port group, but that does not have any. It was an isolated network. So I changed that VM from that network to the dev. Okay.
Yeah, yesterday, like during the practice, we changed it.
All right, so that's it. So you can use that VM tomorrow. So I have the VMware vCenter software already downloaded here. We're going to use that. Actually, you can see that vCenter. This is the one. Not the one. This one. This is the VMware vCenter. So basically, I can show you now if you want how do we do that. Don't do the installation. Sujan is the only person who knows how to install vCenter. Correct, Sujan? So this is that ISO file. This contains all the required pieces for vCenter. So I just want to show you something here. I just attach that and it will automatically pop up now. So this is what we're going to do tomorrow. This is now onwards we're going to talk. So this is the VMware vCenter vSphere 5.1. This is the latest thing. This contains quite a lot of things. So we're going to use the vCenter simple install. Simple install will take care of all these things. You may be wondering what is single sign-on. Now with vCenter 5.1, it is supporting single sign-on. It's not applicable for us here. When you're in a cloud environment, you need single sign-on, but it is required, it is a must to have single sign-on installed today. So when you install the simple install, it will take care of that. Inventory service. These two things are pretty new with ESX server vSphere 5.1. vSphere 5 and 4.1 never had these two pieces. So in our office, when I recently upgraded some of our vCenters in our dev lab environments, it was explicitly we go here and we upgraded these two things. But if you are doing a first time install, you can do this, which will take care of all these things. Inventory service is the searching capability. It is very, very powerful. And if you want vSphere client, you can install vSphere client right from here. So VMware vSphere also has a new piece called as the web client. It's a very powerful web client. It is something very similar to the vSphere client, which we use, this vSphere client, where you can see all the things. So there is a vSphere web client is there, which is actually you can use any browser to access it. It's very, very, very powerful now. Going forward, VMware is looking to use the web client as their main client to manage vCenter and ESX servers. They are slowly in the process of getting rid of this thick client. There is no more thick client or a vSphere client. It is going to go away probably in next 1 or 2 years. They are working a lot on improving this thing. The web client has improved a lot in the last version. So vSphere 5.1 web client is very powerful. We will look into that. It's a web-based application. It can work on any non-browser. Update Manager, we will be talking. That's a whole different thing. VMware vSphere Update Manager is the patch management solution. By using Update Manager, we can patch ESX servers, upgrade ESX servers, VMs, everything. You can do that. So we'll be looking into that. That requires an additional database. It's an extra separate database. That's a separate application. We will look into that at a later point. That is it. And then these are some support tools. Dump collector is for collecting some logs and all those things. There is nothing much very important here. But we will be looking at these things, and we will do the installation of this, all these things tomorrow. You can see that there are some prerequisites, 3.5 SP1 and in Windows Installer 4.1. Both are actually available on 2008 R2, so we don't need to worry about that. So we will be doing the installation of vCenter tomorrow. So vCenter is a Windows-based 64-bit application you can install on any Windows servers provided. Remember, there are a few things. vCenter 5.1 can be installed only on 2008 R2 and above. It is not supported on any 32-bit platforms. It supports only SQL Server and Oracle database and SQL Express. It's not supported on Sybase or UDB or any other database. MySQL, nothing. No, it supports only these three databases. That is it pretty much, guys. So we will look into this tomorrow. Tomorrow the class is at 8:30. Tomorrow and day after, that's only 2 classes. But tomorrow we'll install vCenter, we'll configure, and then we'll add all our servers into it, and then we will go through some of the properties, and then I will talk about some, snapshots. And so there are so many small pieces we need to carry. So we'll talk about all those things tomorrow. Okay, guys. Thanks and good night. So I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Deepu, one quick question before we leave.
Yeah. Right, and you guys ask your question.
I just
I get you. What's that? No. I don't want anybody to try that because we don't want too many vCenters, and I don't normally encourage anybody to install vCenter. We only have one vCenter, and that's it. Installing vCenter is just like a movie you guys watch. There is nothing rocket science. If you know how to install Skype on your computer, you can install vCenter also. So I don't want too many vCenters here, and that's why I told Sujan also not to do that, because an ESX server can be only managed by using one vCenter. You cannot manage an ESX server using multiple vCenters. If you have an ESX server which is managed by one vCenter, and if you try to add that ESX server to another vCenter, it will be disconnected from the first vCenter. So I don't want that. I want everybody to work on one center, and I don't think you all are not very small kids who need to, okay, click next. You don't need to do that. Did anybody try to learn how to install vSphere client? It's a simple thing. So we don't want any other vCenters. If somebody is really want to do it, go ahead and do it, but don't add an ESX server. You can install vCenter, but I don't think there is any need to spend time. Rather, spend that time to read the books. That's where you can learn. So a lot of people think that, I go to do hands-on, but hands-on is something you gain later. But first you need is to understand and talk about the product, because getting on an interview and passing the interview, at that passing interview time, nobody is going to give you a practical test. So how best you can talk, open your mouth, and how better you can present yourself, that is the key thing there. So rather than doing all these things, I would strongly recommend you to, read the book and go through some properties and things like that. Okay, but if you want, you can, but you understand what I'm trying to tell you. So if you want to try, wait for the tomorrow's class and then you try. Don't simply go and do that. You can do it. I don't think there is anything difficult there. But understand and do. Just clicking next doesn't make any sense. So if you go through every screen, I will explain what are the things and what it is doing, and then that way you will understand it better. Okay.
Okay, Deepu. For the NFS, adding the NFS to the data store, there are a bunch of mount locations. Can you send those mount locations?
That is 3, 4, and 5 /MNT. You can you don't need to ask that. You can actually go to this current server. You can see that. If you go to 96 and you go to the storage, you can see the properties of that. Click on that NFS. It will show you here the folder, the server name, the mount volume. The same thing is what you have to use: 3, 4, and 5. /MNT /volume 3, volume 4, and volume 5. If you do it only on one server, maybe add only 1 or 2 data sources, give others also the chance to do that. Don't add to all servers and say, you're finished. Okay, so give everybody a chance to do that. You need to only add 1 or 2 to get an experience. And if you want to disconnect one, you can actually unmount a data store. You can do like that. If you cannot, but you can of course unmount NFS data store just like that. It will go away. It is not going to delete anything. It is not going to format anything, because NFS data store is a file share. The question is whether you are attaching it and detaching it. That's it. So what I did now is I just detached that data store, and now you can add it back again. Okay. Okay, guys. So good night. And thanks. Hey, Shrikant, I got your email. You're right, man. So that was confusion. So never mind about that. Okay, that's good. I mean, not Shrikant, Santosh.